All right, Kobe. Today we're going to read lesson 52 out of your decoding strategies book here for me. So what you do is read the entire selection here, and then afterwards we'll answer some questions about it. Okay. So go ahead.
Title is More Landmarks. Everything was green inside the jungle. Even the light was green. Tony's white shirt looked green. No sunlight got through the Denise trees. Only a green glow filtered down to the floor of the jungle. Salt was leading the way. Tony followed them. Then came Rosa. After they reached the huge moss-covered rock, they turned slightly to the south and paced off another 26 paces. They stopped at the edge of the stream. They jumped across the stream, turned more toward the west, and paced off another 26 paces. They stopped at the edge of a very steep slope. This must be the foot of the volcano, Salt said. So far we've been lucky. There has been no landmarks for every arrow on the map. No salt and no other turn south. The map said W-16. So Salt stepped off 23 paces and stopped. There was no landmarks. Salt mopped the sweat from his face. He squinted and looked through the underbrush. No landmark, he said, but let's go on. We know that we are going right when we got to the foot of the volcano. The next arrow on the map was pointing due west. The map said X16, 24 pace. Salt said again, began to step them off. When Salt stopped, he looked around. Tony and Rosa looked around. No landmark. Salt shook his head. The jungle was not as dense as it had been. There were a few plants. Most of them were huge ferns. It would have been easy to see a landmark, but there was none. What should we do? Tony asked. Salt ran his sleeve across his face. What should we do? Do you think that we came across the ocean so that we could stop here? We're going on. That's what we're going to do. Salt took out his compass, turned to the southwest, and checked the map. 26 paces, he said, and began to step them off. When Salt stopped, he shook his head. No landmark was in the sight. This doesn't look good. Well, we'll find that treasure all right. But we may have gone off course back there. With that, Salt sat down on the ground. The ground was almost bare and it was wet, as Tony found out when he sat down. Suddenly a big beetle almost as big as your fist darted across Tony's leg. Tony jumped up. What was that? He yelled. He could feel his heart pounding in his ears. Salt laughed. That's my boy. It is what we called a bug. It's not a big bug for this part of the world, but it's a bug just the same. And we'll be living with lots of bugs for the next few days. Tony almost said, let's go back. Let's forget about the gold and get out of here. But he knew that it would be silly to leave when they were so close to the treasure, so he didn't say anything. Tony didn't wait to sit on the ground anymore, so he looked around for something else to sit on. He saw a fallen tree trunk a few feet from the others. But when Tony walked over to the tree trunk, he didn't like the way it looked. It was rotting and falling apart. It looked as if it were full of all kinds of bugs, and it had a strange twist in the trunk. The trunk looked as if somebody had tied it into a knot in the trunk of an old tree. It took Tony a moment to realize what that could mean. "Hey, Tony," he yelled, "I found a landmark. Come here." The others ran over to the fallen tree. "Look at the trunk," Tony said. "Sure," Salt said. "It's a mark all right." It was a young tree at the time. They tied a knot in the trunk. The tree grew bigger and bigger. Then it died and fell over. In a few years there won't be any left of it. But there it is, the landmark. We're right on course. Tony walked to the roots of an old tree. He took out his compass and looked at the map. U-16, he said. That means 21 pace. Salt stepped him off. He stopped at the foot of a steep hill. Tony felt very excited. He knew the map by heart. He knew that there was no more arrow before the treasure H-16. Tony didn't wait for the salt. He began to pace off 8 paces to the east. He stopped in front of a large pile of rock. "This is it," he hollered. "We found the treasure. It's under this pile of rock." He ran over and threw his arms around Rosa. Rosa was soaking wet. "We did it, Rosa," he said. "We're rich." "Not yet, we're not," Salt said. "We're not rich until we get the treasure out of the ground," Rosa said. "But we already done the hard part. The rest is going to be easy." "No, it won't," Salt said. "Our real work has just begun."
Very good. All right. You to answer these questions for me just as an informal assessment, okay? In your reading, okay, question 1, what color was everything inside the jungle? Do you remember what it was? Go ahead and write it right there. All right, when they had trouble finding another landmark, okay, what did Salt think may have happened? Okay. While they were resting, when they stopped in the jungle, what scared Tony? Okay. All right, 4. Tony looked for something to sit on. Okay, when they were resting, what did he see that was important about what he found to sit on? Okay. All right, last one. Why were Tony and Rosa so very happy at the end of the story? What happened to the story? Why were they so happy? Good job.